Who was it that Danny also connected us to for that
J.R.
very first?
Bird,
Yes, J.R. initials J period R period Bird.
and he was an amazing talent.
Unfortunately, he passed away from cancer
Mhm.
about 6 years ago or so,
Yeah,
if
he
I
was
can
young
recall. He
too.
was way too young.
And he
And
he introduced us to Ross Redmond.
right, oh my gosh. So see,
And
things just
so those two
naturally
young kids
spiral.
came in and played with us old people.
That's right. Yeah, they were just kids. He was in his mid
They
20s
were
probably,
kids and they were so good.
but
Yeah.
he was such a tour de force because, and very unassuming, but he sang rock and country tunes like nobody's business,
Yes.
could harmonize perfectly. He might have even had
Yes.
perfect pitch. He could play keyboard. He could
And
play
acoustic
acoustic
guitar
guitar. He could play
and
bass if you wanted him to,
yeah,
and he played saxophone.
saxophone. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so all of a sudden, like, look how many of these problems are solved with JR. I got
Yeah.
James King's over there killing it
Oh,
on the keyboard and singing
James is a
soulful.
monster. He's
Yeah,
so good.
geez, I would
Yeah.
do. I mean, he was like of the ilk. I was doing gigs with him regularly anyway. And
Yeah.
then here's, JR. We put him up at the front next to you, and
Yeah.
he's holding the. He's got a keyboard. He's got a guitar strapped around his neck. Sometimes he picks up the saxophone and
And we even got him to rap.
yeah, oh
He did
yeah,
Eminem.
he was
Remember?
good at that. It was like what? Yeah,
We got him to rap.
yeah.
You know,
So he did it
and the greatest
for.
thing about him is what a great writer he is. I mean, he
Oh
has
yeah,
the most
he had his
beautiful
own kind of
original
a.
tunes too, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which leads then to that. So then
Yeah.
in somewhere along the way, James, at somewhere after '06 or so, and another fellow would actually sub for him sometimes during, I found traces of like checks I wrote him and stuff, all during 2006, a big tall fella,
And he was playing in
D-Mac.
my rock band at the time.
Yes. So, yeah, right. But D-Mac,
Oh, I thought you were talking about Dave
no, no,
White.
I was headed, no, I
Sorry.
was headed to this. So when
Okay.
James would have to miss, so then quite often, and it was another person you knew, D-Mac, Derek
Yes.
McCampbell, would join us to sub for James. Well, at that point, I lose a keyboard player, but then JR would just play a little bit more keys. Now I got the beautiful, soulful voice. And so at the end of 2006, JR said, or sorry, yeah, so then James was going to leave. So then JR said, I got a buddy who I'm already doing my original projects with, Ross Redmond. He would like to, join the band. So that kind of solved that because Ross could sing also, great rock and pop, and he could
Mhm.
rap also. And then, so he and JR were kind of a pair.
Right.
And then we added DMAC to be permanent. Is there anything else that stands out to you from that
Oh, well,
first
then
couple
after
of years?
after them, after Ross and JR left, then we brought in Dave White.
Oh yeah, yeah.
From because Dave White played in my rock band I had going on at the same time, and he's
Uh,
this phenomenal keyboard player. And then
yes.
he was a part of it, and then and he could sing really well. And
Mm,
it just seemed like every time we would add somebody new, it would just they were all wonderful, and they all would add just this unique flavor. And so the band just kind of had these different transitions, these different
hmm.
iterations, through the years that were everything was wonderful and top notch, just different vibes.
Yeah.
Really cool.
And yeah, and actually this is a beautiful story about the transition to Dave White and that iteration because then all through literally just a year, 2007, it was Ross and JR together with usually with DMAC singing.
Mhm.
And but then we started making the horns more permanent.
Right.
We'd have horns more often.
I
Instead
know
of
where
it
you're
being,
going.
yeah. But
Yeah.
then, well, maybe you don't, because then what
Okay.
happened is JR and Ross at the end of 2007, JR was really gung ho about his original project.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, yeah, maybe this is what you were thinking of. So then he was like, I'm really sorry. I love this band, but I've got to
Yeah, he moved on,
pursue.
did his
I
thing.
got to
Yeah.
pursue my thing. And they even had road dates booked and whatnot. And so the two of them, suddenly I'm like gasping, like I'm losing two core members. But then you were like, no, we got to have Dave White. He's willing to transition over here. And
Mhm.
Dave White comes in already singing a wide repertoire of stuff.
Yeah.
One of those, again, one
He's
of
just
those
such a
voices.
great
And
player
literally
too.
had been a rock star. What was the name of the
Right.
band that he was in the
Warrant. He
80s?
was in Warrant in the 80s.
Warrant, yeah, an 80s rock band. So here he comes in, plus DMAC. The three of you could harmonize. Anyway, I
Yes.
still remember what happened is we did our very first gig with that iteration, also at that same club, and it's called Memphis Nightclub. This still standing somehow. Anyway, so we did our first gig there, and JR and Ross came because they weren't on the road yet. And I remember Danny told me, the sound guy said, Ross or JR leaned over and said, "We made a huge mistake."
Oh, I didn't know that.
They
Oh,
were
that's
like,
so great.
"Why did we leave this band?" Because it just knocked them out, you know.
Oh, wow.
But you
And
know,
then we had such wonderful horn players. And as they got more, like, I think when they first came in, they were more from the jazz world and they were just more subdued. You know what I'm saying?
oh
And
yeah,
then
yeah.
over time, and we started getting them out of their shell. And the next thing you know, they're putting on crazy hats. And remember Pete dancing all around. And
Oh, oh
it
my gosh,
just,
yeah. They were,
everybody just blossomed. It was
yes,
a
yes.
cool thing to watch.
And I think that maybe the common thread in all of that story to just close with is that, rather than this being a stiff, rigid model, like you join us and this is how we do it, it
Oh, yeah.
wasn't regimented in that way. We didn't ever really have auditions, actually.
No, it was always just kind of who we knew and
Who we knew, and
who we
then
knew was good.
and if they're good, we would allow whether they're singing or playing something, allow their impression on something, their take
Right,
on something,
right.
and making it organic in that way, musical in that way,
Oh,
driven
sure.
by
Like
the
I'm sure
music.
there are some certain songs that we probably would have never done, had somebody just said, "Oh, but it was like them," and you're like, "Yeah, I do it." You know what I mean? And it was a hit because usually when you do something from your heart, it comes
Yes.
across.
Yeah, and there's a compromise there, and we have to play, plenty of music that's more like, well, if we don't do X and Y,
Oh,
a
I,
few of
I
these
get
things,
that.
you
I'm
you
just I'm
have
just
to
saying we
do
would
that.
add in certain things.